The Connector Next Door is your invitation to meet the natural connectors all around us. They represent the everyday event planners who are energizing their communities every single day. Their stories are familiar, fun, and full of charm. Your host, Lisa Garrow, is a lifelong event planner and has been a connection strategy coach for over a decade. She knows events can become energized connecting points where communities can gather and grow. Let's listen in as she strikes up a conversation with today's Connector Next Door.
Nita Knapp has lived and invested her ability to connect in small rural communities all her life. She grew up in Evansburg, Alberta, a community of 700 people, and then moved up in the world to a community of 1,500 people, where she moved at 17 to Mayerthorpe, Alberta. In her work as a Mind Renewal Coach, Nita serves clients and kindly guides them to live in alignment with their unique purpose. It's her passion to see women gain clarity on what's holding them back and start living their lives with purpose. Nita's goals this year are to create events, workshops, and talks that will resonate deeply with women, not just where she lives, but globally. She knows from experience when women are ignited and in alignment with their purpose, they become alive in their uniqueness, and this bright light is sprinkled on those around them. So how do we renew our minds? In our conversation today, Nita encourages us to become aware of our toxic thoughts, to tear down what's not working, and reconstruct our mind with purpose. Well, welcome back, everyone, to the Connector Next Door. I was just over the weekend, had a great time. Our grandson just turned 12. And took him to Boston Pizza, had a great time. And it was in one of these small towns, if you don't know Alberta at all, but it was in Drumheller, which is a smaller town, kind of central in the province. And as we were driving around, I was saying to my husband, there's something about the rural connection. There's something about knowing your neighbor, understanding your neighbor. And we were having this discussion about what the podcast has been about discussions with people that truly know their neighbors, truly know whether that's their customers or their families or people that really matter to them. And what a beautiful opportunity, because Nita, you and I had already decided to have this conversation today, but you're coming to us from Mayerthorpe, Alberta, which maybe you can give us a little bit of a gauge on where that is. But just before we start, I'm so glad you're here. Thank you so much for joining me on the Connector Next Door today.
Oh, thank you for having me, Lisa. This is just such an honor and a privilege. And yeah, I'm just so happy to be here and connecting with you.
So tell us a little bit on where Mayerthorpe is.
Mayerthorpe is from Calgary. We are 5 hours north. We're an hour and a half west of Edmonton. So it's just a little rural community. We have about 1,500 people here. And it's a cute little community.
And you've lived there all your life, or how long has it been?
Well, I've been here for about 36 years. I grew up in Evansburg. I was there for 14 years. And again, we had a population of 700 there. So I moved up.
That's right.
Yeah, we had 2 grocery stores here and there was only one there. So that was a big step.
Right. Oh, hilarious. And so how old were you when you moved to Mayerthorpe?
Well, I moved here. I did my grade 12 here. I was 17, and then I moved back for good when I was 18.
Wow.
Yeah.
So this has been really life for you, and when we talk rural, people are listening from all over the world, and there's different interpretations on what that means. But when we talk about a small group of people organized in some kind of a community, there are all sorts of amazing things. I can imagine. I've never lived in that small of a town, but where people know each other, right? There's relationships that are naturally built. Tell us a little bit about what that was like, kind of getting into your adult years in Mayerthorpe.
Well, it's kind of cool to be in a small community. Quite a few years ago, my husband was in a bad accident and our kids were, but it was just incredible. Like, I cannot we had to actually buy another freezer because so many
Hmm.
people, they were just so kind, and just they knew our story. They knew
Mm.
what we were about, and they were just so willing to help out, which is it was just, it's humbling. It's beautiful. Growing up in a small town, you have that opportunity to be able to help others who are in need,
Yeah.
celebrate, with people who are doing really well. So I do love that about the community. One time I remember I had a flat tire, and somebody pulled over and they're like, "Don't you have AMA?" And I said, "No, I have neighbors."
That's
I don't
great.
need AMA, so somebody everywhere you are, which is,
uh,
it's really nice to know you go to the co-op, you get to talk to people. You always allow about an extra half hour because you're going to be in there, just
isn't that
catching up.
interesting? Oh,
Yeah.
that is really interesting. And it's interesting from I lived in a lot of cities before. But
Hmm.
even in living in a city, they say it takes 5 years for you to start to see people in your local grocery store or from projects you worked on. And 5 years is a long time. Your kids are growing up
Hmm.
during that time. So having
Hmm.
neighbors that know you well and that can feed into the good times and the bad times. We're going to get a little bit more into your professional career, where you're going today. I'm thrilled to have people learn a little more about you and
Hmm.
how you are expressing you in everything that you do today. But we usually start with a pretty basic question that turns out to be kind of for me, very curious and kind of fun question. But we talk about what connection means to the natural connectors that come on as guests. And I would love to hear from you. What does connection actually mean to you?
Hmm. That's a loaded question, but a great
Yeah,
question.
yeah.
I think for me, connection means to me is reaching out and being kind.
Mm,
Just no matter where you are, whether you're in your local grocery store, whether you're in a big event, weddings, doesn't matter where you are. It's just to connect with people in such a kind way so
mm,
that they feel seen, they feel heard, they feel loved, and just safety. Um,
mm.
and to really inspire each other in a beautiful way, and like, oh, well, I never thought of it that way, just to give different perspective, and to encourage. I think connection is encouragement, connection is grace, connection is kindness to everyone.
When we talk about kindness, I think sometimes we discount it, right? Like we feel like, well, of course, everyone should be kind. It's kind of just a way
Hmm.
of being, and we assume that people know what it means to be kind. And and the practical example you just gave of you don't have AMA because you have neighbors, and I love that, because really when you talk about being kind, it does include an availability to your neighbor or to somebody that is around you to take the extra half an hour in the grocery store because
Hmm.
you're going to meet people, and to stop and have that conversation. Or if somebody, how many of us say how are you doing but truly don't wait for the answer, where we're
Hmm.
not that we don't care, but I think we're very busy, and we feel like, well, we're not mean to them, so I guess that's okay. Right.
Hmm.
But kindness is such a beautiful way to describe connection. I think if any of us, especially over the last couple of years where we've seen a lot of dissension, and I guess that's sort of
Hmm.
the nature of our world in all decades, but where the kindness stands out. When you look at your community today, how do you see people actually showing up in that kind of kindness?
I think people are just taking that extra time to show kindness, to take the extra time to give that phone call. Hey, how are you? I haven't seen you in a while.
Mm,
Let's do a Zoom call, especially for isolating or whatever. And it's just really reaching out and asking. I haven't, checking in, seeing
mm.
how you're doing, and taking that extra time at the co-op.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
know, I
Exactly.
actually have an example. Like this summer, I had a flat tire, and I'm like, okay, now I have AMA because I go out there, and I had a flat tire, and I'm like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? And I had both kayaks in the back of my vehicle, and I was close to home, but this fellow stopped.
Hmm.
And he was, I could tell physically he wasn't in good shape, but he was from our local community, like not too far away. And he changed my tire for me.
Hmm.
And I'm like, how kind, just how kind that he, even though I wasn't feeling 100%, stopped
Yeah.
and helped me. Like, how kind is that?
Yeah. I'm intrigued by the idea of bringing more kindness into the world. What's been very interesting and inspiring to me is your perspective is all about bringing the light. And so
Mm-hmm.
you as a coach, you encourage people to really find that light within them. You believe that everyone has that light. And I've got some great shots, or even on your social media, some great shots of the light coming from behind you. Is that part of that? Like, do you feel that within us, we all have that ability to choose kindness first? Is that part of the light that you're talking about? Tell us a little bit about why you chose light as one of the metaphors for your now growing coaching business.
Why I chose light, for me, there's something inside of me, and that is God. And He is the light. And when we can take what's inside of us and shine and sprinkle light on other people, then they can see the light in them.
Mm.
Because I really believe that everybody is doing the best that they can, or that they have the awareness of. When there's darkness, there's always light.
Mm.
And just shining. I just feel if we can shine, then it attracts people to what is it that you have? I want that. And I want to just be the best person that I can be. And then it's a ripple effect. And then it's just kindness and light. It just spreads everywhere around us.
When you talk about your purpose and how you are there to channel that light to others, that others can really not just feel your light, but actually claim that light for themselves, that they can also live in that space,
Mm-hmm.
is really beautiful. I also love how you so you call yourself a Mind Renewal Coach,
Mm-hmm.
and that it is, you start with a purpose and you start with this light that is within. And then from there, you actually move to the mind and our mindset. And I want to get there a little bit today, because I'm excited to be starting. Today is the first day of our first cohort with the Connection Architect program. Thankfully, Nita, you are part of that cohort, and we know each other both personally and professionally. But today is Mindset Monday. And I'm also working on one of the cornerstones of Better Connections here at Candy is mindset. And so I'd love to go there a little bit and tell us a little bit about why you chose mindset and mind renewal as a focus for your coaching. Why does that help someone actually claim that light that's within them?
Well, mind renewal, as it says in the Bible, to renew your mind every day. And, I didn't really know how, so for me, it was really important to understand also the science of how our mind works, and understanding how much our thoughts, and the more that we focus on what we're thinking about, how much it actually just trickles into our life everywhere. So by renewing our minds is, okay, capturing what you're thinking about, like a carpenter, tearing apart what you don't want in your life and building back into what you want in your life. And you can do that in your mind. And when our minds aren't renewed, it's our bodies are toxic, because we have all these thoughts just swirling around and we're not making sense of it. So by renewing our minds in a way that, okay, I see what I'm thinking about, I have awareness of why I'm there. So now I can reconceptualize it, as Dr. Carolyn Leaf says, rebuild it, reconstruct it into a beautiful way of thinking, and knowing that everything I'm thinking about can actually have a great purpose.
So when we talk about building better connections, so that's part of the Connection Architect program is really, I love what you're saying, kind of tearing down what wasn't working, or maybe those thoughts or those beliefs that are rotting or causing that toxicity, that we do need to sometimes clean house or tear down a wall or get rid of something in order to rebuild what could be. How are you seeing that with your clients, where now by making that connection for them, that they're starting to see that that's possible for them, something different is possible for them?
Incredible. Like it just, they're like, I never thought of it that way. That's just, it's a different perspective. It's like, oh, I actually get a choice, and understanding the way that our minds actually are, and that we just have so much, we can be so empowered in renewing our mind to the way that we want to be thinking. And they feel just incredible. Like it's so exciting when it's like a light bulb. Yeah, it's like, oh, so it makes me excited to see others light up, just be so excited about, I am so thankful that I have this opportunity to be able to help others in a beautiful way. So, because we all have such a uniqueness about us. So,
and you say when you had shared your bio with me as well, and you say that you're a certified mind renewal coach, and that you serve clients to guide them to live in alignment with their unique purpose, so they can gain clarity on what's holding them back from living their life with purpose. I love that so much. It's so beautiful. How have you come into this in your own life? What sort of prompted you to get there in your own story? Were there things that happened in your life that really led you to this?
Yeah, there was a few things. The first thing was I always say I was the CEO of our home for 28 years, and then my kids all left.
And then what?
And then what? Yeah. And I've always been so interested in helping others. And then a few years ago, I actually ended up with some severe health issues. And I thought, oh my goodness, I thought I took care of myself. I thought I was looking after myself and eating healthy and exercising, and boom, this happened to me anyways. And I had already been doing, the certification. And I thought, if I could go back and tell my 20-year-old self, what would I do? I would bring awareness. I would bring awareness to women that when our mind and our body and our soul are all in alignment, we can live with purpose, even though the conditions and circumstances around us aren't always in our control. But what can I do? Yeah. So for me, it was to bring awareness that doesn't matter what season you're in. It doesn't matter what's happening. You have a beautiful purpose. And I wanted to create connection in community that way. And then COVID, so now I've had to switch online, but just to bring that connection and awareness. It's like, to me, awareness is such a gift, because when we know, we get to make different choices, when we know what's going on. And honestly, when we know we're not alone in it. Because so many of us go through life thinking that we're the only ones struggling with mindset, struggling with health, struggling with loneliness, struggling with now what? But when we can create the connections, you're not alone.
Right. It's interesting, you coming from a rural perspective, and me in Calgary. And again, I've lived in a few different cities. It seems like it's kind of the same everywhere, where we really have to work at connection. We have to work at making that phone call, or really bring ourselves around to, in my case, maybe not working as much and then leaning into friendships more, that kind of thing. For myself, sometimes I've thought, well, maybe if we were in a rural environment, maybe we would connect more naturally. Maybe things would just happen, and what you're saying is there still is a choice to be made. Even if you've grown up in this kind of environment of a smaller center, more connected, I guess, with your neighbors, with people around you. But what you're seeing in your clients and what you've experienced yourself, you had to make a choice to have that awareness, to connect both with your own purpose and then reach out and connect with others.
Being in a small community, you also know everyone.
Right.
Right?
And everything about
Yes, and everything. So, there was a time in my life where I wore a mask because I said something and it was like, well, you should be grateful.
Mm,
So I was like, oh, I need to wear a mask and pretend that I'm always okay when really I
interesting.
wasn't.
Hmm.
So it's now taking that mask off and just being unique and authentic and okay with not being okay.
Yeah. And how has that been for you?
Yeah, it was a little scary. And I mean, I have so much support, so I'm very thankful for that, but somebody has to do it,
Yeah.
and stepping out and doing the workshop was so scary for me because I really put everything out on the line. But yet it was so rewarding because I thought, if not me, who?
Hmm. Hmm.
If I can't be real, if I can't actually say what's going on, they might have awareness, but because people know me, it's a great way for me to connect with others on a whole different level, to be vulnerable, to be authentic, and to be real.
And you say, if not you, and I think as people are watching your journey and hearing how you're describing this, and as a coach, you have a formula. And I love that you started this 5 Arise that will be almost, when are you launching?
Well,
Fast here.
yes, very fast. Yeah, within the week.
Within the week, which is amazing. And so
Mhm.
this idea of arising to who we are, this authenticity that is so important for all of us, living with purpose, and that we can claim that light inside. And in the renewing of our mind, really getting to that space where we're feeling like it's actually possible. What, what in the world? And even in this being Mindset Monday, one thing that I just keep coming back to is really moving into the possibilities. Like when we start to renew our mind and really understand how do we move from problems or some of these challenges we have to what are the possibilities that we can be living differently. And with the group of women that you work with, you've started something called Walk with Nita and Coffee with Nita, incredibly practical ways for people to not just hear your story, but interact with each other. Tell us a little bit about what those experiences have been for the people that are really not just watching you, but now engaging with you in what this means to renew their minds and live authentically.
Well, it's been so much fun. I have so much joy doing it. To me, it's not work because it really isn't. It's just such a great way to connect with these women. And one of the ladies said, my husband said, "Okay, when is Nita?" Because over Christmas I took a little break there, and when is Nita starting those walks? I love it when you're with her. You just have such a different perspective.
Ah,
And I thought, oh, well, that's kind of cool. And it's so enjoyable. It's just really great to see others really connecting. We laugh, we have fun, we enjoy it. The coffee is a half an hour and the walk is an hour. So, I get to spend a lot of time with hearing other people's journeys, hearing their perspective, and then
mhm.
seeing the shift of, oh, I never thought of it that way. That's a great way to think of it, and just choosing a word each week and just inspiring others and
And
seeing.
consistency. Yeah, that they're
Mhm.
seeing it and showing up consistently.
Yeah.
And you were saying, and seeing,
Well, and just that they're saying, I never thought of it that way. I just never
yeah.
thought of it that way.
And that's probably a sign of them actually reconfiguring the structure of how they
Hmm.
think, right? If I've never thought of
Yeah.
it that way, it means that they've cleared the way a little bit to think and to process something new, and maybe to start building something new in how their mind sets them up for success or for the next step.
Hmm.
Or like you said, that you were the CEO of your home, but then the kids leave. So then what? So now
Yeah.
what? But that we all are on this journey, that there's always another something that we
Hmm.
can either reinvent or adopt. That's really beautiful. And that I think we can learn doesn't matter where we live, doesn't matter what our
Totally.
community looks like. I think what you've got to offer is something that many, many people would probably identify with, even if you're living in a big city and have other challenges or other opportunities. The idea of really resetting and
Mm-hmm.
setting our mind to something new, that's really beautiful. You said that you moved into Mayerthorpe when you were 17.
Mm-hmm.
So when you were younger, when you were even a kid, was this something that was mirrored to you by your family? Did you have siblings that were also connectors, that it was just part of helping your neighbor, that kindness that you're talking about? Was that something that you experienced from when you were younger as well?
For sure. Yeah. My dad and my mom, they were involved in everything.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. So like my dad was the mayor, they both worked in the community, and we did everything. We were involved and volunteered in every event that happened in Evansburg. And my mom was so kind. I always looked at her and I thought, she's so kind. She just really cares about people. And I thought, I
Mm.
want to be like that someday, and just really care and ask how people are doing. So, of course, when you are children of somebody who's involved in different things, that's part of your responsibility as well. So we
Right.
just learned how to volunteer. We learned how to pitch in. I was an oldest or the oldest. I have three younger siblings, and I loved coordinating stuff like Christmas time. Okay, kids, let's get together and go sing at the lodge and go knock on people's doors, and just really bring joy to people in a kind way, I guess.
I grew up where my family was very involved in the community too,
Hmm.
always invested. We were investing. I sometimes joke that it was the family business to just help in the community. And when you grow up like that, sometimes it is also hard to have the other side of that, that individual. What is my uniqueness? What is it about me that I can share with others? And part of that journey is also saying no to some things. Did you find as you kind of moved from that background into sort of another smaller rural area again? I think you had said once that you were the go-to person, for everything that needed to be
Hmm.
done. Did you find that there was a time in your life where you had to start to be more selective? Because if you're saying, I want my uniqueness, I want my business, I want to grow in different ways, was that something where you had to learn how to be selective in where you would help?
Very much so, because I love people and I never wanted to say no. So I learned to say, can I think about that?
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Because that feeling on the inside of you when it's like, because it was like, you know what, I'll figure it out, I'll get it done, because
Yeah.
I'm a doer. Like, sure, I'll do it all. But then I was so tired, right?
Yeah.
So I really learned to say, let me think about it, or let me get back to you. And I would pray about it. I would think about it. And when I had to learn how to say no, I really did.
Yeah. It's interesting that you use the word or the phrase, I have to think about it, because even from your perspective as a mind renewal coach, and it's about really hearing yourself, where you can actually
Hmm.
choose this or you can choose something else. And it doesn't mean no forever necessarily. It might just mean no, not now. What was that like for you when you started to say no to certain things? You might have disappointed some people, but what was that feeling for you when you started to become selective that way?
Well, my first feeling was guilt. Um,
Uh, yeah.
because I don't like to let people down. But then my second feeling was, oh, thank goodness I said no, because now I can give my full capacity and focus my energy on where I'm actually needed and give my all, rather than just giving little bits and pieces of me
Mm,
everywhere. I could just focus on what needed to be done, where my energy needed to be, who needed me
hmm. And what
fully.
you maybe wanted in your next steps. I know we've talked a lot about the growth in your company and where you're going with this, how many more people you could be serving by, whether that's through speaking or workshops or some of these courses that you're offering online. I love hearing what that was like for you, because I believe that for many of us, especially maybe for women as well, but for many of us where we'll hold ourselves back because we're saying yes to so many things, or we're answering the demand of the day and not necessarily looking at that long term, where could we be if we were able to say no to some things. And the fact that you're coming to the work that you do, to your client conversations in a way that what that feels like, where someone like me, if I'm saying, I just have never met that goal, or I'd really like to do that, but I don't think it's possible, then you're kind of coming alongside and saying, well, what I've experienced is, if you start to consciously say no to certain things, that might open up some opportunities and space and margin where we can really be authentic, exactly what you're saying, and opening up other opportunities for ourselves. You're writing a lot and you're really clarifying where you want to be. Where are you going right now with your coaching and with, whether that's the walks or the coffees with Nita or in some of the programs you're developing? What are you excited about in the next few months here as we're starting to see things open up again, that your coffee right now is virtual, but maybe that'll be in a coffee shop someday? What are you really excited about exploring in the next few months here?
Oh, I'm so excited. I'm just so excited to bring people together in a way that they can just really, really love who they are. Because when you love who you are, not in a boastful, I'm all that, but when you really love the uniqueness inside of you, that love is shared with others. Whether you're in a family, whether you're married, whether you're single, doesn't matter who you are, just knowing and finding your self-worth, your uniqueness, your beauty within, and sprinkling light everywhere. Everywhere you go. I just think in a world that we can be anything, let's be in it and share kindness and share light and share uniqueness so that we can just love on others.
Yeah. And like you said, that becomes probably that ripple effect as well when we start to arise and when we start to give ourselves that permission to shine, how that also gives others that permission to shine in their own way as well. I typically ask the guests that come on this podcast, what would you sprinkle out into the community if you could really send your message around the world? And I think you just articulated that so beautifully, that if we truly loved ourselves, if we allowed ourselves to, sometimes it is just looking inside and seeing in our minds what those barriers might be, that we're not connecting that head and heart so that really truly becomes something that has that ripple effect, or like you say, sort of gets sprinkled around in our communities. Thank you so much. I'm excited to see where you're going to go. I love this conversation that we were able to have today. How can people get a hold of you? You mentioned that your 5 Arise is launching pretty quick here. We're going to get this out this week, this podcast episode out this week. So they might even be able to join in. So how do people find you, and what would that next step be for them?
Well, they can find me on Instagram or Facebook, Coaching with Nita, or through email, coachingwithnita.ca.
Tell us a little bit about 5 Arise and what they'll experience if they connect with you and then they choose to sign up for that.
Oh, what they'll experience connection with other women. And in that connection, they're going to see their self-worth. They're going to find their unique purpose. They're going to be in alignment with really what they want to have in their life. And they're going to be able to go out and do things in just a excited, empowering, new way of living, and not just living, but really being alive, waking up with energy, waking up with I can do this, waking up with hope, and waking up and seeing anything is possible. My dreams, the goals, some of the things that I want to be doing. And maybe, you know what, it's just having some peace. Maybe it's just getting up and having a shower, or maybe, they're going to be solving world hunger. I don't know. But, coming into Five Arise is going to give them the energy that the sun gives. It's that light, it's that vitamin D, it's clarity, it's calmness, it's peace, it's understanding and awareness. So coming into that and just showing up how they are, exactly which season they're in, and being open to receiving whatever beautiful things they can take away and incorporate into their lives.
It's an amazing space. Yeah, amazing space to be offering people to be able to go there and do that in community. I admire your passion and your purpose, and in the times that we have chatted, I appreciate your friendship so much, and I know that there is more coming for you. I'm excited to watch your journey and support in however we can here at Candy too. Thank you so much. I'll make sure to add the links in the description so that people can find you. For those of you that are out there that are feeling like maybe that's not for you, maybe you're not ready for that, maybe that feels intimidating, to really look at what does that look like, not just to sort of find that light or to choose yourself, to really find the space where you start exploring what your purpose is. But in Nita's world, where it really is about mind renewal, I'll encourage you that even just dipping your toe in and going for coffee virtually with Nita, going for a walk, maybe even with friends in your community, and allowing yourself that space to really learn more about what does that look like for you, to really be authentic, to really find that light and to shine that and sprinkle it, like Nita says so beautifully, all over your community. I couldn't think of a better definition of connection than that. Thank you so much, Nita, for joining me today. I so appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, Lisa. You're such a blessing in my life. And I'm so, so thankful for you and all you have you've just filled me up so much. And I'm so, so, so grateful. So thank you for having me here today. It's just been such a pleasure. Love you to bits.
Thank you. We'll talk to you again soon.
The Connector Next Door podcast is produced by Candy Event Consulting, where everyday event planners and their teams gain clarity, get connected, and grow in confidence. Subscribe at www.candyconsulting.ca to hear visits with everyday event planners who are putting connections first.